Over the past few years, Hoka has made some shoes that were a real surprise. But whether they were good or bad, each of these shoes has had me wondering, why are these shoes here? And what does it mean for Hoka? Today, I'm going to tell you about these shoes and why I think they're so important. Yo, what's going on everybody? My name is Kofuzi and I am a non-elite runner who has happened to have tried a lot of shoes. And today I'm going to talk to you about three very specific, very important Hoka shoes. But before I do want to go over some disclosures. Today I'm going to be talking about the Ten Nine, a special edition of the Speedgoat 4 and the Kawana. Now, the Ten Nine and the Speedgoat 4 were shoes that I purchased myself, but the Kawana is a shoe that was provided to me by Hoka for the purpose of review. But no matter how a shoe got to me, no one's paying me to make this video or to use the shoe, and no one is going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts, no matter how wrong they might be, before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the three shoes that I think are really important. Now, I mean, I think overall in the context of things, there's like the regular history of Hoka that I think most people are pretty familiar with. It started back in 2009 from two former Salomon guys who just wanted to put like double stacks of midsole foam on their trail shoes so they could just bomb down hills and trails as fast as they could without it taking too much of a toll on their body. In 2013, I think actually late 2012, that initial brand Hoka One was purchased by Deckers brand, which still owns it today as part of one of many brands that are in the Deckers kind of portfolio of brands. At some point though, I think I'm going to use Sage Canaday as a reference point here because he's been a Hoka athlete for a really long time. I think as early as 2014, so many people were mispronouncing Hoka One as Hoka 11, just kind of like reading the words, that I think that the brand like kind of unofficially, officially adopted Hoka 11 as either the correct way of pronouncing the brand name or as one of the correct ways of pronouncing the brand name.
Hoka 11 now.
But that went on from 2014, I think, all the way until about like 2018 or so, where they kind of like officially decided we're going to take the correct pronunciation back. And then I felt like everyone else was starting to again correctly pronounce the name Hoka as Hoka One versus the Hoka 11. I could be a little bit off on that, but that's kind of how I remember things playing out. So that's kind of like the basic history that a lot of people have known about this shoe that has been since even the first financial statement that Deckers brand has had about Hoka, as saying that it is a line of footwear for all capacities of runner designed with a unique performance midsole geometry, oversized midsoles volume, and an active foot frame. But I think that while they're maintaining true to that, I think that what they're trying to do also is, like any business, grow the different parts of their business. One of the things that I thought was really interesting looking at their 2021 financial statements is that it seems to me that right now Hoka is about like a $500 million yearly sales company. So they're selling a lot of shoes, they're moving a lot of product, but it's not just shoes, it's apparel, it's lots of other things in addition to just the shoes. But one of the things they have as a goal for the future is to turn Hoka into a $1 billion a year brand. And I think that the main way that they're going to be doing that is they're going to be doing that by, number one, maintaining that core of providing performance at the core of their kind of like product promise. But I think that they also have to expand to different core categories as well, other than trail running, people that want max cushion on trails and people that want max cushion on the roads. And so three shoes that I want to look at. The first one I'm going to talk about is the Ten Nine. Now, this shoe was announced in like March of, I think, 2020. And when I first saw images of this shoe, I thought it just looked absolutely ridiculous. And considering that, April Fool's comes, right after the heels of March. So I thought that this surely is like an April Fool's Day joke. I feel like we've all kind of like realize that like corporate April Fool's Day jokes are not that fun anymore. But back in 2020, it was still a thing that we were all doing. And I was like, just positive. But I saw pictures of it, but yeah, I never saw a video of it. And I was like, this is not a real shoe. There's no way it can be a real shoe. But it turns out this, in fact, is a real shoe. It's gigantic. And just to put it, just so you could see like the comparison, this is the Hoka Rincon 3. It's the same size shoe. Both of these are size 9s, but the Ten Nine is just gigantic, and it's got this extra large protrusion out the back, almost like a caricature of what Hoka originally started out as being like unapologetically goofy, super comfortable, and very functional, even if it has to look unorthodox when it comes to trail running. Now, I've taken it out for a run. It's not as bad as this thing looks. I mean, it looks ridiculous. There are many redeeming qualities of it, but I think it's instructive that 2 years later, we haven't seen any updates to the Ten Nine. And the name of the Ten Nine, for example, though, Ten Nine, it just further like emphasized the fact that I thought this was an April Fool's Day joke. Because if you think about Hoka 1-1, maybe they're poking fun at how the way people used to pronounce the brand name. Hoka 1-1. 1-1 is 11, so 11, 10, and 9. So I like clearly this was an April Fool's Day joke, right? But I think that even if that's maybe how this thing started out, what this ended up doing for Hoka, and I don't know if this was the intention or if this was, you know, kind of like making lemonade out of lemons, but the Ten Nine still exists today as a whole different category of shoe from Hoka. And so what previously had been a trail running shoe and a road running shoe company now has a trail hiking shoe division. Now, the back part of this heel isn't quite as pronounced as in the original Ten Nine, but there is a Hoka trail hiking boot called the Ten Nine, and there's a Ten Nine GTX version. They all look great, and from what I've never tried that one. It seems like it's a very popular shoe, and I think it's selling well. And that entire kind of like division, as far as I know, there aren't a lot of other hiking boots that Hoka sells. So as much as this thing is like a goofy, weird thing, it's helping Hoka to get to that $1 billion a year mark by opening up a whole new category of customers to the Hoka brand. So I think that like the significance of the Ten Nine, as like comical as much as people like me like to poke fun at it, I think it's an extremely important shoe for Hoka. Now the next shoe that I want to talk about is a shoe that came out in 2021. I first saw this at Western States. Some of the Hoka people were there, and they were the ones not running. I mean, like people that work like at Hoka were there to watch the race. And some of them were wearing this, and I was like, what is that shoe? It looks absolutely amazing. And I liked it so much that I eventually got my own pair. This is the Hoka Speedgoat 4, but this is a special collab edition, and you could see some of the markings. It's that on this tag here, it says Hoka One One with This Is Never That, and it also has it This Is Never That marked on the medial side of the shoe. There's also a This Is Never That logo on the insole. Now, This Is Never That is a design house based out of South Korea that some people are calling like South Korea's like answer to Supreme. So like to hear that they're doing a collab version with Hoka is, I think, really quite remarkable. And I think that Hoka had done some other collab with some other brands, but brands that were kind of in the same space. They had done a collab with Cotopraxi, I think, at about the same time. They had done a collab shoe with Outdoor Voices, but these are all kind of like very similar. But to get this collab with something that's not like trail and running related, I think that was a really big move and a really big win for Hoka. I mean, I think it's an absolutely beautiful shoe. I couldn't get it when it was originally released. They didn't restock it, so I actually just recently bought this one on StockX, which that's another thing that I think is like absolutely like bonkers. Is like, if you had told me like 3-4 years ago that like I'd be buying Hoka collab shoes on StockX, I would have thought you were ridiculous. But here we are. The shoe is absolutely beautiful, and I think it's a really important shoe that's in Hoka's lineup now, because since then they've gone and done other collab shoes as well. They're going back and doing collab versions of some older versions of shoes. They did I think it's a Mafate Montclair collab, which I think just looks absolutely amazing. To me, it looks like a Stormtrooper Mafate. I just think it's absolutely beautiful. And I've never ever said that about the Mafate before. And from that as well, they're also doing kind of a Protro or a reissue of the Mafate 2, even though like the Mafate 3 is like the current version of Mafate that's out. The Mafate 2, there is kind of like a streetwear version of it. I still think it has all like the trail heritage to it. I don't think they've changed it or like watered it down. I just think it looks amazing though, and it's very much different than what Hoka is kind of like known for in terms of like the flashy colors, the brightness, the unapologetic Hoka-ness of Hoka trail shoes. It's not in this one, and I think it's an absolutely beautiful shoe. I'm not saying that Hoka shoes aren't beautiful and don't have their own sense of style, but I think that they're also allowing the brand, allowing the designs, the signature silhouettes to be used in new ways that I think are going to appeal to new customers, ones that might not necessarily be like diehard Hoka fans, but just really like what's going on in a specific shoe like this one, like in the Montclair collab, like in the Mafate 2, that I don't think is a collab version, but is definitely geared towards just casual wear, although I'm sure you could also do some really great trail runs in it. So then this brings me to 2022. This is another new shoe from Hoka. It's one of the first shoes that has just Hoka on the label, on the insole and on the tongue. Actually, this Rincon 3 that came out last year also is the same. It just says Hoka, it doesn't say Hoka One One, because Hoka changed the name once again, just finally dropping off the One One from it. But this is the Hoka Kawana, and what this shoe is it's a running shoe. It's a Hoka after all, so running is at its core, but it's not designed for like me and you know. I mean, I think most of the people that are watching this, so I think that it's designed for runners, but it's also designed for people who maybe don't do running as their primary activity. Some people that maybe run a couple times a week as part of their overall fitness, but are also doing a lot of other stuff, whether it's group fitness, whether it's hitting the gym, doing a little bit of cross training, whatever it is, like it's supposed to be able to handle all those things. So it's built a little bit differently. And for those of us who are normally really excited about the Clifton, the Rincon, and now the Mach 4 and whatever else is going to be coming out, like the Kawana, I think for a lot of those people is a little bit of a head scratcher. It's not soft like a Clifton. It's not overly cushioned like a Bondi. Why isn't it any of those things that I like when the upper of this shoe is just super comfortable, all day wearable? And that's because it's targeting a different person. It's targeting someone else that the current lineup of Hoka shoes just isn't touching. So like if you look at the Hoka.com website today, it's got top billing, and what they're doing with it isn't running. So like previously when you go to the Hoka website, what you see is a picture of someone running in the Rincon, running in a Speedgoat, maybe not the This Is Never That collab edition, but in a Speedgoat or running in a Clifton. But now we've got someone doing like stuff in the gym in the Kawana. If you look at some of the advertising that they're pushing right now on Twitter, on Instagram, it's about people doing like core work, doing exercise routines in the Kawana. They're not necessarily running in it. And so like they're really pushing it hard to position it as that shoe that you can use like kind of for everything, for the people who aren't like diehard runners or who aren't trying to run 3 to 5 to 7 times per week. And I think that's completely okay, because there's so much else in the Hoka lineup that still makes sense for those runners. And I think that's something they've been doing with all 3 of these shoes, whether it's the Kawana, whether it's the Speedgoat 4, the collab edition, or whether it's the Ten Nine. I think that with each of these shoes, I think that they are going to be historically significant for Hoka because it just opens up new avenues for them. So those are my thoughts on what Hoka's been doing and where I think kind of Hoka's going. There's still obviously going to be a lot of the core Hoka road running and trail running lineup to come, and I'm really excited for that whenever that finally does arrive. And I'll be making videos about that, so hit the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or what your thoughts are, or if there's other shoes that I should have put into this video in terms of what are like the key points of Hoka's new direction. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it, or better yet, come to the live stream that I do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube. I do it over my Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'll post a link to that to the description down below. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?